Today, again, I would like to nominate this great president for Nobel Peace Prize because I genuinely feel that he is the most genuine and most wonderful candidate for Peace Prize because he has brought not only peace in South Asia, achieving peace in Gaza is saving millions of lives in the Middle East.
So, will the Nobel Committee see a transformative peacemaker, where critics see a destabilizing force? Now, a name that polarizes like no other is on the table: Donald J. Trump. With historic agreements in the Middle East and a nomination from a fellow world leader, the question is no longer if, but could he? Let's break down the case for you. In a decision that has ignited a significant diplomatic controversy, the Nobel Committee in Oslo has awarded its prestigious Peace Prize to Venezuelan pro-democracy activist María Corina Machado. The announcement made on Friday immediately drew a sharp and critical response from the White House, which accused the committee of allowing political considerations to overshadow the pursuit of peace. The award recognizes Machado for what the committee described as her tireless and courageous work in championing democratic rights and freedoms for the people of Venezuela, a nation that has endured prolonged political and economic turmoil. The reaction from Washington was swift and pointed. A senior White House official confirmed that President Donald Trump had placed a personal call to Machado to offer his congratulations and to affirm his belief that she was a deserving recipient. However, the official administration stance, articulated by White House Communications Director Stephen Chung, was one of profound disapproval. Chung stated unequivocally that the Nobel Committee had chosen politics over peace, a clear indication of the administration's view that the decision was a snub to President Trump's own foreign policy efforts. The president has been vocal, both in public forums and private conversations, about his desire to receive the Nobel honor, frequently citing his role in brokering ceasefires and de-escalating international conflicts as primary achievements of his tenure. This sentiment was a central theme of his recent address to the United Nations General Assembly, where he highlighted his administration's work in ending wars and fostering new diplomatic dialogues. Following the Nobel announcement, Chung took to a social media platform to reinforce this message, writing that President Trump remains undeterred in his mission to forge peace agreements, end long-standing conflicts, and save lives across the globe. In a characteristically vigorous defense of the president, Chung described Trump as possessing the heart of a humanitarian and a unique, unparalleled capacity to overcome immense challenges through the sheer force of his will. This episode underscores the deeply political nature of international accolades and highlights the Trump administration's ongoing campaign to frame its foreign policy legacy around the central theme of peacemaking, even as the Nobel Committee chose to spotlight a different kind of struggle for freedom happening in South America. The global landscape watches with intense scrutiny as the second-term foreign policy of President Donald Trump continues to redefine America's role on the world stage, a period marked by both significant diplomatic maneuvers and profound international challenges. Central to this administration's narrative is the pursuit of peace, yet this ambition exists alongside complex and unresolved conflicts. The war between Russia and Ukraine, for instance, continues to exact a heavy toll despite the president's direct demands to both President Volodymyr Zelensky and President Vladimir Putin to broker an end to the bloodshed. This stands in contrast to a recent and tangible achievement, a ceasefire deal between Israel and Hamas, which, while a significant development, remains fragile and in its very initial stages, its long-term durability yet to be tested. This aggressive push for diplomatic solutions is framed within a broader, overarching America First policy that has dramatically reshaped the nation's approach to global engagement, a philosophy that was made starkly clear just weeks into the term, when his then-advisor, Elon Musk, oversaw the dismantling of the United States Agency for International Development, USAID, a long-standing pillar of American-led humanitarian assistance throughout the world. This restructuring of foreign policy and humanitarian aid creates a complex backdrop against which the recent Nobel Peace Prize decision must be viewed. The Nobel Committee, according to its official mission, awards the prize to those who champion the core principles of arms control and disarmament, peace negotiation, and the advancement of democracy and human rights, all with the goal of fostering a better organized and more peaceful world. This standard has historically led the committee to honor 4 U.S. presidents, with Barack Obama being the only one to receive the award while actively in office. The current administration's domestic actions have also drawn international attention and critique, influencing the global conversation around its legacy. The implementation of mass deportation policies has sparked widespread protests across the United States and drawn sharp criticism from immigrant rights and humanitarian groups who question their alignment with humanitarian values. Furthermore, the president's attempt to deploy National Guard troops to patrol American cities for the stated purpose of controlling violence and crime has raised constitutional alarms from Democrats and prompted rebukes from federal judges concerned about the use of military power on domestic soil. These domestic and foreign policy choices collectively paint a multifaceted picture of an administration fervently pursuing its vision of peace and order, yet doing so through methods that remain a subject of intense global debate and which are measured against the long-established specific criteria of the world's most prestigious peace award. A decisive shift in American foreign policy unfolded in the wake of the unexpected military action in Doha, an event that, according to diplomatic sources, became the crucial turning point in a stalled peace process. A former Israeli official familiar with the high-level discussions revealed that it was at this moment President Trump determined that the ongoing conflict had reached its limit, deciding to force a conclusion to the bloodshed. The official noted that a ceasefire arrangement nearly identical to the one just announced had in fact been available for over a year, but Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu had shown consistent reluctance to finalize the agreement. The Doha strikes, however, radically altered the diplomatic landscape, leaving the Israeli leader with severely diminished options as the American president adopted a new, uncompromising posture, demanding assent and strategically maneuvering all involved parties into a position where refusal was no longer feasible. This newly assertive American stance was demonstrated almost immediately when President Trump issued a stark and public warning to Israel, declaring that he would not support the proposed annexation of the West Bank, a move that directly countered a key policy goal for the far-right factions within Netanyahu's own governing coalition and signaled a willingness to exert pressure on a key ally. This calculated application of leverage did not go unnoticed by other nations involved in the protracted talks. Arab and American officials who were deeply involved in the negotiations began to view the surprise military action not merely as a tactical event, but as an unforeseen political opportunity to exert maximum influence. One Arab official directly involved in the process described the Doha event as the necessary catalyst that finally allowed for the application of sustained and decisive pressure on the Israeli government, which had been identified as the primary obstacle to reaching a final agreement. The diplomatic momentum, forged in the tense and uncertain aftermath of the crisis, then found its next critical stage on the global platform of the United Nations General Assembly in New York. In the weeks following the strikes, this annual gathering of world leaders along the bank of the East River provided the essential and grand backdrop for the next phase of negotiations. It was on the sidelines of this assembly, historically the very setting where complex international agreements are solidified through direct, personal engagement between heads of state, that the discussions underwent their most significant transformation, moving from stalled proposals to a tangible and actionable framework for peace, all under the shadow of a newly decisive American presidency. The diplomatic momentum that began in the halls of the United Nations found its decisive shape in the high-level meetings that followed, a period now seen as the critical turning point for the entire peace effort. Secretary of State Marco Rubio later reflected on this intense phase, noting that it was during these concentrated discussions that the fragile initiative truly solidified into an actionable strategy. President Trump personally convened a crucial meeting with leaders from key Arab and Muslim-majority nations, using the diplomatic gathering not merely for consultation, but to present and build essential support for his detailed 20-point peace plan. It was within this forum, Secretary Rubio explained, that the president successfully forged the foundational coalition necessary to grant the proposal substantial international weight and a new layer of regional legitimacy, moving it from an American proposition to a collective demand. This carefully assembled backing proved immediately instrumental when President Trump presented the finalized proposal to Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu during a subsequent meeting at the White House. A pivotal and delicate moment of that visit, one laden with profound diplomatic significance, involved President Trump persuading Prime Minister Netanyahu to place a direct telephone call to Qatari Prime Minister Sheikh Mohammed bin Abdulrahman bin Jassim Al Thani. The purpose of the call was for the Israeli leader to formally apologize for the recent military strikes on Doha, a move that required considerable political concession. This act of contrition, however, was not merely a symbolic gesture to ease tensions. It served the essential and highly practical function of allowing the Qatari government to remain actively engaged as a key intermediary in the ongoing talks, a role considered absolutely vital given Doha's unique and established channels of communication with Hamas, which no other party could replicate. Its long-standing investment and unique position in the peace process remained an indispensable element for achieving not only an immediate ceasefire, but the foundation for a future lasting peace. The Nobel Committee's decision will ultimately be a verdict not just on a man, but on the kind of peace it chooses to reward in the 21st century. And for more deep dives into the stories behind the news, make sure to subscribe.